Welcome to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a licensed psychologist and grief specialist, here to help change the conversation about grief and build community and connection while we all adjust to this new normal we are living in. This podcast is for you if you are grieving or if you are supporting someone in a season of grief. I'm glad you're here. Hey friends, welcome back to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a grief psychologist, and today we're diving into a topic that makes people squirm a little bit. And I think it also needs more airtime. So today we're going to talk about grief and sex, because here's the truth. When you're grieving, your body carries it. And that includes your nervous system, your sense of safety, your capacity for connection, and yes, your sex life. So if you found yourself thinking, why don't I feel like myself sexually anymore? Will my desire ever come back? Is it weird to want sex now? Is it weird to want sex right now? Is it weird that I don't want sex right now? This episode is for you. So today we're talking about how grief impacts your sexual self and desire, what the research says. Yes, we're bringing in Emily Nagoski, the myth of quote unquote normal sex after loss, and how to begin reconnecting with your body without shame or pressure. So let's get into it. Okay, so there is a lot of nuance in grief, right? There's a lot of nuance in sex. There's a lot of just nuance in how we exist. So here's something no one tells you. Grief changes how you experience your body. And when your body is your vehicle for sex, for pleasure, for intimacy, for connection, yeah, it makes sense that everything feels a little different. So let's talk about what this can look like. There can be a total loss of desire. You may feel emotionally shut down or numb. Touch, just that sensory overload, may feel overwhelming or completely unwanted. You may want to connect, but your body isn't necessarily on board. Those things that soothe us aren't soothing in the same way, or offer comfort aren't comforting in the same way. You might have guilt about experiencing desire after loss, or you might notice an increase in desire as a way to feel close to someone, to feel alive, or even just grounded in your body again. And here's the thing, all of these reactions are normal. Grief is not just a mental or emotional process, it's a physiological one. It hijacks your nervous system, it scrambles your arousal patterns, and it makes everything feel like it's either too much or not enough. Story time with Heather. So today's reflection reference, I'm going to talk about two characters in a TV show who responded to grief in very different ways around touch and arousal and intimacy. So I had been rewatching Sex and the City, and I'd been rewatching Sex and the City because I knew there was a new season of And Just Like That was coming out, I think later this summer. And so I was like, oh, they're all on Netflix. I'm just going to rewatch those. So I like to have background shows on when I'm grading or when I'm doing my chart notes. And so something that I've watched before. So I had this on, and it came to the episode where Miranda, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, I'm in the episode where Miranda's mom had just died. And it was really interesting watching the grief responses that she was going through and the friend group was going through. So like for Miranda, she was in shock. She was numb. She was caught off guard. It wasn't expected. And she felt really alone and overwhelmed by everything. And so she has to go to the store to get a black dress because she's visiting her mom in, I think, Philadelphia, and didn't bring a black dress because didn't know mom was going to die. And she had gotten there really quick. And so she goes to the store, and the customer service gal is trying to help her get fitted for a bra because she needed a black bra to go with her black dress. And it was interesting watching her reaction to touch and someone trying to be supportive and helpful, and she just was rejecting that until like, oh, that comfort and support is what she needed, and she was able to lean into it in the moment. And you know, it's almost like her grief was just so big, it made everything feel so big within her. So touch, emotion, sensation, it was all just overwhelming to her system until she was able to just break and name, my mom died. And she was crying in the dressing room, and the woman was able to provide comfort. It was a really lovely moment. And then on the other end, Samantha, who, if you haven't watched Sex and the City, she is the more adventurous one sexually. And so when she learns that her friend's mom has died, it brings a grief response up in her. And what she chooses to do that is to try to achieve an orgasm. And so she spends most of the episode trying to get an orgasm, and she just can't until she's able to tell Miranda, I'm so sorry. And she just starts crying. So she's able to have that emotional release, and then things go back to normal in her arousal department. But it was interesting watching how that grief response shut things down when historically that had been a way for her to achieve some soothing or connection, and she was able to feel okay. So it was interesting watching those two characters react differently to intimacy and connection with others when there was grief in the room. So now let's bring in some research, because, we love some citations these days. And so I went to the Innovations in Psychotherapy conference 2 years ago, and I got to meet Emily Nagoski, and she had written the book Come As You Are, which, if you haven't read it, it's fabulous. And then she came out earlier in January last year with Come Together, another really solid book about maintaining intimacy in relationships long term. And so she does a lot of research on sex and intimacy. So in her book, Come As You Are, she talks about the difference between spontaneous desire and responsive desire. So spontaneous desire is what most of us were taught to expect, just quote unquote, wanting sex out of the blue, like it just happens. Whereas responsive desire is when your body responds to a situation, touch, connection, but it doesn't necessarily want in advance. It more is a result of some actions leading up to. So here's the thing to remember with grief. Grief almost always shuts down spontaneous desire. Why? Because your body's in survival mode. And as Emily Nagoski says, context matters. So if your brain is flooded with cortisol, if you're emotionally numb, if you don't feel safe in your own body, your sexual brakes are fully on. The desire system is saying now is not the time. And guess what? That's not broken. That's your body protecting you. So let's reframe that for ourselves. You are not dysfunctional. You're grieving, and your body knows it, even if you're trying to ignore it. Are you a healthcare provider who's worked with grieving patients? We want to hear from you. This study, Grief Training and Education in Healthcare, an exploratory study, is inviting healthcare professionals across disciplines, medicine, psychology, social work, nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, naturopathy, and more, to complete a 30-minute anonymous survey exploring attitudes towards grief and perceived preparedness to support grieving patients. Your insight will help shape future grief education in healthcare and inform best practices across professions. Participation is voluntary and anonymous, and you can complete the survey online. Please visit our website to learn more and take part in this important study. Together, we can move toward more grief-informed care. Thank you. So let's name something else. There is a lot of shame here. People feel guilty for not wanting sex, for wanting sex too soon after a loss, using sex to cope, not being able to be present during sex, losing connection with a partner because the intimacy isn't there. And what I want to say is this: grief doesn't follow rules, neither does healing. And so your behavior connected to sexual expression, like that's going to shift and ebb and flow. So what I want to say is this: grief doesn't follow rules, right? Neither does healing. So here's what I often tell clients navigating this. One, your sexual self is still in there. Even if it feels far away, even if it's quiet, it's still there. There's just other stuff happening that makes it really hard to take our feet off the brakes and put it on the gas. Number two, you don't have to rush your body back into connection. If it takes a while for things to get moving again, that's okay. There's not a timeline here. There's no pressure. There's no expectation. Like, you get to have body autonomy sexually and with your grief. Number three, you're allowed to grieve the version of yourself that used to feel confident, playful, alive. That version may come back, and in a new way, on a new timeline. And if you're partnered, like, talk about it. You don't need a fix. You need space and curiosity and patience. We need those things that help support emotional intimacy, and we can feel connection in good ways that way. So letting your partner know, I'm grieving, I want closeness, and I need us to redefine what that looks like for now. Again, there's no timeline with grief, right? We go through these different grief states, we cycle through them over and over again. And so there may be seasons throughout this new normal, this new grief space, where we just need more space and less physical connection because that maybe feels better in this moment. Again, I think, I said at the start of the episode, there's so much nuance here. There's also so much stigma around grief and talking about sex. And so I think that's even makes it even more important for us to merge this conversation into these two topics so that we have language to normalize the complicated feelings that we're having while we're grieving, and maybe have a partner and just sex isn't feeling the same, or the desire is just not there. So if you're ready to dip a toe back into sensuality, to intimacy or touch, but feel completely out of sync with yourself, here's where I suggest starting. So first off, touch without agenda. Try self-touch, gentle massage, or even skincare as a way to reintroduce sensation. No expectation, no outcome, just being present. Number 2, name what feels good and what doesn't. You're allowed to not like things you used to enjoy. Your grief may have rewritten your relationship to pleasure, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's gone. It doesn't mean that it won't change into something different. There's ebb and flows and nuance here in what feels good. Pleasureful changes over time. Number 3, relearn your arousal patterns. So what turns you on now might be different. Maybe it's mental stimulation, maybe it's emotional safety, maybe it's slowing way down. Treat your desire like it's getting reacquainted with you, not returning on demand. It's not like we just have a remote control that we can just click it back on. It doesn't work like that. And number 4, give yourself permission to feel grief and pleasure. They can live in the same body. They can coexist in the same body. You're allowed to feel both. All right. So here's what I want you to remember today. Grief impacts your nervous system, and your sex life is part of that. You're not broken if desire is gone, messy, or confusing. You're just in a different season right now. Your sexual life your sexual self is still there. It just may need some time, some gentleness, and maybe some new context. And most importantly, you're allowed to take your time. Ask for what you need and feel pleasure again when it's right for you. So here's my invitation for this week. Check in with your body. Ask what feels good, not sexually necessarily, but just good. Like, what feels good? What feels safe? What feels calming? What feels real? That's where reconnection can start. And if this episode landed for you, share it with someone who needs to know their grief and their sex life are allowed to coexist. Feel free to DM me at griefisthenewnormal with your thoughts or questions. Remember to be kind to yourselves today. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. That's it for today's episode of Grief is the New Normal. If this conversation resonated with you, or you think it might benefit someone else, please share it. Sharing can open doors to healing, understanding, and normalizing these griefy conversations. If you're craving deeper insights or ongoing support, consider signing up for the Grief Gap newsletter. It's packed with resources, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate your grief journey. Visit the website www.griefisthenewnormal.com to subscribe. For those who prefer a more personal touch to their healing process, check out my grief journal, Authentically Unapologetic. It's designed to help you explore your grief on your own terms, with prompts and exercises that encourage reflection and growth. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and I look forward to our next meaningful conversation. Our soothing tunes are provided by the Datacorns. If you're interested in sharing your story, collaborating, or learning more, please email me at hello@griefisthenewnormal.com. You can also stream the episodes on YouTube for more engaging content. Until next time, keep exploring your grief with intention and support, remembering you don't have to do this alone.